We are live. This is the Kaizen Market Update. I am your host, Bill Noble. Bill, it's Friday. The market is cracking. What is going on? The good news is you have arrived at the What is Going On live stream when no one knows what to say. That is my job to figure out what to say. We are going to have a little lesson in governments behaving badly, combined with the start of what I believe is a monstrous fiat currency crisis across the globe, believe it or not. Okay, we're going to go into all of it. Zorbis, what's up? A lot of experts are calling for another Great Depression. All right, so is cash king, or is it better to hold crypto or gold? We'll go over that. That's a good question. Sean is here. Corey, Mehet, Stefan, D. Harris, TB, welcome. Jakara, Fernando, Brandon, hello. VA, F. Morales, Lisa is here. Hello, good morning. Malik, Nicholas, Marathon Digital Holding. Is the stock worth investing in? Well, I can't give you investment advice, but in my Patreon and on YouTube, I have discussed an upside target for a marathon of 300 using some quirky long-term price prediction analysis. And somebody sent me a video of somebody from Marathon saying that their upside target for the stock is 300, which is funny. It's like, I really do believe that, like, I don't have a million viewers like Brian, but there are select people that do watch the market update. And when I say something interesting, it somehow gets out there. It's funny. So, yeah, Marathon and Bitcoin miners, no one wanted them at 16, and they're going to tell you that Marathon's overvalued at 20. And I continue to say what I have been saying, that these Bitcoin miners are the source of the most scarce commodity on earth. And you're going to find out when we start getting going in fiat here, just how important Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Zcash, Zephyr, anything that can be used as money, you could just wake up one day, it could be up only. Like, I don't know, in dramatic fashion, especially if you start looking at what was going on with the dollar. Because I woke up this morning and I looked at this market and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, I did a bunch of cat coin trades as like an experiment. I told you about this yesterday. I got into the cat coin trades. The market immediately went down 20% in my face. It doesn't matter, like, if I bought it on support, if I waited for it to go through support, it's like the whole position went down 20% in my face. And then Pajama and Popcat kind of rallied. And then I was able to get out of the position for a 10% gain. So I went from down 20 to up 10. Never try to turn a bad trade into a good trade. I don't know if the trading guys talk about that. I was just trying to gauge the temperature of the market. And as you can see this morning, the market just cannot hold a bid. It's like it goes up and it just stops and turns around and goes down. And we don't understand why. And then this morning, dollar yen took off. And, that is what is going on. So I'm going to explain all that right now. Okay. So we're actually going to start with a chart right now. So this was actually one of my first jobs in finance, was to be the assistant dollar yen trader. So the relationship in fiat between the dollar and the yen, right? Like in crypto, we don't talk about, like when we talk about Bitcoin, we just talk about Bitcoin, right? But really what we're talking about is Bitcoin versus whatever currency you're trading it in. So if you're in Japan, it's Bitcoin versus the yen. Here we just say Bitcoin, but really it's Bitcoin versus the dollar, right? Bitcoin goes up and the dollar gets weaker versus Bitcoin. That's really what happens. All right. Because as Bitcoin goes up, $1 buys less and less Bitcoin as Bitcoin gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay. Now you're like, okay, Bill, I just want the number to go up, but I get it. But you do need to understand this. So now what's happening is this relationship between the dollar and the yen. So if the dollar goes up, the yen goes down. And if the yen goes down, the dollar goes up. Depending on what drives this thing, like for example, if there's something that's bullish the dollar and bearish the yen, then this thing can go up a lot. Now, what has been happening in Japan and with the yen for the last, 20 years? And we had this big primer on this thing where I talked all about it. This is probably back over here, right? Now, the Japanese have a debt problem that's actually catastrophic. It's big. If you adjust the size of the country, it's actually twice as big as ours, or way worse than ours. And then they have a demographic problem where everyone is their whole taxpayer base is passing away and no new babies are being born. So they have this literally this death spiral going on. And basically they've been dealing with it by printing money. That's what they've done, just massively. So they stopped printing money because whatever they were doing kind of stopped working, and inflation started to pick up, and they had to do something because they couldn't just indiscriminately print money and leave interest rates at zero. That's what they said. So for the first time in I don't know how long, literally, they raised interest rates, and everyone thought the yen was going to go up because everyone thought that the yen was going to go up because they were going to raise rates and the dollar was going to fall because the Fed was going to cut rates. Well, guess what? The Fed's not cutting rates. Okay. Because of, alleged inflation numbers. And we will see what the Fed does in reaction to this. Because guess what? The Japanese, if you go to this headline, right? So the dollar is making a new high. That's what that green God candle is. And the yen is making a new low. So the yen plunges to a low after the Bank of Japan does nothing. So they did something to make the yen go up, and the yen is collapsing because everybody is like, Japan is collapsing. Or that's what they're saying in the foreign exchange market. They're saying they printed this currency for 20 years and this currency is going to crash. Period. This is everything we talked about in crypto, right? This is the fiat meltdown that everyone thinks is going to happen and be up only for crypto. And, now it's happening, except it's not starting in the United States. It's starting in Japan. Okay. So we're having a fiat currency crisis effective this morning. No joke. Okay. Now, how does a fiat currency crisis get resolved? All right. Now, from a TA point of view, 157.45, it's USD JPY on TradingView. You probably can't see it. That's why I write it up here. Okay. Now, this should stop at 157 something, and it's not as of now. So the next target is 164. Now, if the dollar goes from 157 to 164, you have to remember, like in crypto terms, you're like, that's not really a lot. But in something the size of dollar yen, it's a lot, right? Like if you have the dollar versus the yen, that's a 5% move. And you have a 5% move in a epic, huge relationship. Trillions of dollars a day in volume go through on these instruments. You're going to have a problem. Now, how does the problem get solved? That's the question. All right. So we've just read that the Japanese are doing nothing. Nothing. They're going to do absolutely nothing. So that leads us to, how does this crisis get solved? Okay. And I am looking for an article. Here we go. Okay. So if the dollar is too strong, how do you make the dollar weak? How do you stop this? Well, you inject a massive supply of dollars into the system. Now, if the Fed can't take the lead on that because of inflation, right? Because normally the Fed would just open up the floodgates, pump all kinds of money into the market, and try to make the dollar go lower, and just flood and flood and flood and flood until the dollar goes lower, literally. Okay, they probably can't do that because of optics, right? There's the election, there's inflation, they can't do it. So, how's it going to happen? So, risk assets will rally if the TGA, what is the TGA? Well, it's the US Treasury, it's their Treasury General Account. Okay, meaning, obviously the Treasury has to borrow money to fund the US government. Now, when the Treasury makes borrowing announcements, they can say we're going to borrow a lot. They can say we can borrow a little. There's the official announcement that they make. But what the Treasury can do is because Yellen used to be a Fed governor, there's something called Treasury QE, right? Where the Treasury visibly or invisibly borrows more than they need and then injects it into the banking system through the Fed. So it's not a Fed policy, but the Fed can cooperate. And if Janet wants money in the system, because remember, Janet is like vocally partisan, right? I used to think the Fed was neutral. That is absolutely not true. Absolutely not. Right. Janet is a partisan, and Janet can inject money into the system using the Treasury General Account. And that is exactly what's going to happen. And you know how you know it's going to happen? Because the Bank of Japan is doing nothing. Their currency is collapsing. And they're just like, oh, well, that's nice. Normally, central banks don't react that way. Matter of fact, in general, the definition of a central bank is to fight inflation and defend the currency. which they're obviously not doing well on that in Japan. All right. So what happens when the dollar goes up? Let's circle back. So when the dollar goes up like this, okay, risk assets get smacked. Right? Dollar up only is not good for crypto. It's just not. Right? It's nauseating because stocks are up. Crypto stocks are up, which I still think is a great place to hide. But this is a problem, and this eventually gets resolved with the U.S. government printing money. Now, in the meantime, to keep it very brief, what happens is, crypto's like cracking today. Like all the charts are breaking. Everything looks terrible. And everything cracks and cracks and cracks. And, the government may want crypto to crack a little bit. That's fine. But when they have to start coming in to save the yen, like you got to remember, it's Friday, right? And the yen doesn't open back up until Sunday night, Asia time. So the market has the whole weekend to read all about the crisis in the yen. And if this gets materially worse, you're going to see the Fed, which means you could have, and I've seen this before in legacy, where you have this reversal where you go from, everything is going down. Oh my God, the sky is falling. And then the flood of money comes in and everything just turns around and goes up only. Now, if that happens, I think it's going to be Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. It's going to be anything that looks like money. Because I cannot believe when we go through the list of news and the behavior of governments. I mean, I can't even do my own show on YouTube. I can't talk about this on YouTube, any of it. Can't talk about the yen, can't talk about the dollar, can't talk about the Fed, can't talk about all the stuff the government's doing. I can't talk about it. I have to figure something else out. All right, so let's go through, some news. Okay, meanwhile, back at the ranch in China, the finance ministry has expressed support for plans to expand the People's Bank of China trading of government bonds through open market operations. Okay, in other words, printing money. Open market operations means they print, take government securities or securities of whatever kind. They take the securities, put them on the bank's balance sheet, and inject all this money into the system. So guess what? The Chinese are going to print. The Chinese are going to print because their economy is just crashing. It's a disaster. I mean, I don't know if it's a disaster, but maybe it's just like this slow rolling slowdown that if it just continues, it creates social unrest, right? Which is why, you saw the Chinese stock market go down and, macro heads like me got all pumped up about it. And the Chinese stock market is doing okay, but, they cannot have social unrest over there. Like we care about our capital markets. Like we care about what the 1% is doing. They care about the ability to sustain employment. They cannot close factories over there. They cannot have a recession or they will have riots, or at least that's how communists think. And it's probably true. Preventing social disorder is their number one priority. They are going to print. They're going to print massively. Now, are they going to print tomorrow? I don't know. Frankly, I'd be surprised if they weren't printing already, but they're going to do it. And if we are printing and they are printing and the Europeans are cutting rates at the same time, the amount of money that's coming into the system is going to be breathtaking. The question is, does it come in now? Does it come in May? Does it come in July? It's definitely coming. Okay, so the Fed is moving its preferred inflation target to 2.7. In other words, we're going to stop being stupid and pretend inflation's ever going to go down to 2% without a 60% drop in stocks. They're just like slowly getting used to the fact that inflation's going to be 4 or 5% indefinitely. And, the only way to protect yourself against that is to own gold, silver, or crypto. Is it too late to invest in the gold rush? Okay, my argument would be no. Silver hasn't even gotten started yet. I was in the market when silver hit $52. I have no idea why anybody thinks this is going to stop. Demand from China draws prices. Everyone's like, well, retail investors are all buying, blah, 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 blah. This can't continue. Oh yeah, it can. The gold ETFs haven't even started rallying yet. Silver ETFs are moving. Gold ETFs haven't started moving yet. So what is going to happen when every big pension fund has to allocate money to gold and crypto? Okay, so now that I've told you what's actually happening, namely the dollar is going up, which is making everyone in crypto nervous. Everyone is selling, and we've got a fiat currency crisis in play that is unfortunately raising the value of the dollar, and crypto can't rally in that environment. Crypto can rally a little bit if the dollar is stable. If the dollar is not stable, then crypto gets smacked. But what everyone's really doing now is they're trying to take the sloppy price action. They're trying to take all these government headlines, and they're trying to look at them through a negative lens to try to retroactively explain the price action. When, in fact, all this government FUD and the ensuing news headline, to me, is giga bullish. It's just a question of when the printed money shows up. So we have Kara Swisher downplays crypto significant. It's not the center of everything. There are a lot of scams involved. Right. So everyone is chasing, whatever meme coin they can chase. Personally, I think, I kind of like base. I mean, Solana still has some cool stuff. But just because people want to gamble because they can't pay their bills doesn't mean crypto is not the epicenter of everything. It just means that you have to be careful of what you do. I realize that's a positive, slanted point of view, but wait until there's a problem with the ATM machines. Okay, so a happy and sad day. The Ethereum Foundation has to sue to get the government to follow a rule it already published, namely that Ethereum is a commodity, not a security. Okay, so again, not talking about this on public YouTube. The FBI warns Americans against using unregistered crypto money transmission services. Okay, so I'm sure the FBI is, you have to look at certain things from their point of view. Like every time someone gets scammed, they have to call the FBI. So I can imagine that there are a lot of agents in the FBI who are like, you know what? Maybe we need to put out a press release and tell people to not transmit money so they don't get scammed or whatever. That's one thing. But, don't you notice how all this FUD comes out all at once? It comes out all at once. And it doesn't make sense because they continue to just attack and attack and attack. Okay. And it's not going to work. It isn't. When has it ever worked? Okay. MicroStrategy could be included. Now we're flipping it over. MicroStrategy could be included in the S&P 500. Huh. What do you know? Do you realize what this means? Like if that stock is included in the S&P 500, that means every what they call index fund has to buy the stock. So this could feed on itself, right? Like Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategy goes up. MicroStrategy changes its accounting, makes an acquisition, whatever, gets included in the S&P. Then suddenly the stock market is pulling up the value of MicroStrategy, which could actually lead Bitcoin. Because if the equity market starts rallying MicroStrategy just from straight buying pressure, it's effectively saying the Bitcoin held by MicroStrategy is worth more and more and more and more. Not to mention the fact that MicroStrategy could pull Galaxy Digital, all these beat up Bitcoin miners. I mean, where's MicroStrategy going to get all this Bitcoin from? I keep saying this. They put this company in the S&P 500. They're going to have huge expectations once that happens for like, hey, what are you doing to grow the company? What are you doing to grow the earnings? What are you doing? Oh, okay, we're going to take over a software company. We're going to take over a Bitcoin miner. We're going to make an alliance with this project and that project and that project. If they put MicroStrategy in the S&P, it's up only. It is. I mean, you can literally have almost a distorted price for Bitcoin of like over 100 because MicroStrategy is being bid up by organic buying pressure because, if it's in the S&P, everybody has to buy it in the equities world. Everybody. World's largest custodian holds the Bitcoin ETF. Wall Street gets with the program. Meat and seafood company adopts Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. A lot of nice PR they're getting for this, huh? Wonder how many companies are going to try this before the day is done. Huh? Crypto is back. Stripe will start supporting stablecoin payments. Gee, could there be a problem with the currency? I don't know. Bybit launches Layer 2 airdrop campaign. Oh my God, this Bitcoin Layer 2 thing. I mean, the valuations on things like STX, people have already forgotten that Matic back in the day went from 3 cents, like not even 3 cents, like a third of a cent to $3. It was 1,000x Matic last cycle. Okay, 1,000x. Now, here comes the ETF FUD. This is unbelievable. Spot Bitcoin ETF clobbered by $218 million net outflows on Thursday. This is what the media is writing in the middle of a fiat currency crisis. What kind of demand, how fast do you think this number goes from 218 million out to 218 billion in? I mean, please. Okay. A Bitcoin mining giant is ahead of schedule on its post-halving expansion. Wait, what? You mean Bitcoin miners didn't sit around and go, gee, I guess we're going to make less money now with the halving. I guess we're just going to get hosed. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. No, of course not. Right. The management of these companies, has been gearing up for the fact that, it's like, okay, how do we position the value of this stock to 10x if Bitcoin goes over 100K? And could you wake up one day and have Bitcoin just be over 100K? I mean, I know it's kind of crazy, but it's kind of not, right? Like everyone gets bearish, everyone gets out, everyone gets discouraged. And then all of a sudden you have this massive problem in the fiat world that calls all these central banks have to come in and start printing. Because you cannot, I'm just telling you right now, you get dollar yen's at 140 something, 150 something now. You get dollar yen at like 160, 170 something. You have like a big problem. You have a big problem for crypto, but you got a big problem in the system. Because you got to think about it in Japan, right? They're an island. They import everything. You cannot have prices. You cannot have a currency collapse and just that whole economy that has to import everything, not crater. So if you think central banks are like the Bitcoin miners, right? If you think they're just going to sit around and not do anything, there's absolutely no way. There's absolutely no way. Okay. So runes generate 135 million in fees. Now, to be honest with you, even though this runes thing is exciting and fun, they probably got a little carried away with that after the halving, right? It's probably, that was the sign that, hey, maybe this is not going to go up anymore. Maybe we can't get through 66K because there's all this, like everybody is jumping on the speculative activity. However, I suspect just like with ETH, NFTs, these little macro dips are a pause to probably get involved, right? Because everybody knows how to do memes on Solana. Some people know how to do memes on Base. I don't think anybody knows how to do this whole runes thing. I don't think anybody does. And that leaves more upside. But again, they got a little bit too carried away after the halving. Oh my God, there's outflows from the Bitcoin ETF because people accidentally bought the top. That's fine. Like, people giving up is just liquidity for somebody who has to come in, because you got to remember things about ETFs. Why did BlackRock want in to begin with? Well, there's lots of reasons. But again, the whole thing about a currency crisis, Larry, his research department, they're not stupid. They know this. Guys my age know this. We've seen these currency crises before, or at least I was a young kid when you had one in Europe in 1992. Trust me, you have a currency crisis, you have governments have to get involved massively. Oh, governments, here we are. Senator Warren pens letters to the Department of Justice. You know, I think they got to put that J in quotes. I mean, is there anything these guys can't do? Warning of crypto's use in bad things. All we ever hear about is bad things. When the market's down, of course. Q day approaches. Oh my God, quantum computing is coming. It's not here now, but it will be. And oh my God, I have to write a FUD article. BlackRock inflows hit 0. Great. BlackRock is like, oh, thank God we have time. Thank God we have time to get long. Okay. Now, the 44% capital gains tax proposal is a nothing burger. Yeah, I mean, raising taxes in an election year is insane. However, people are forgetting that, and I have said this, that these people believe that their money is their money and your money is their money. There is something that happened in Cyprus in 2011 where their government was in major trouble because European governments couldn't fund themselves, and they did something called a bail-in. They just went to everyone's bank account, took 10%. Just simple as that. It's like, okay, you know, we need to bail ourselves out, and we need to, the term is bail into your bank account. And here we are in the UK. UK law enforcement can now seize crypto more easily as new rules take effect. They can just come take it. Which is why, you know, you probably got to get like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin and Litecoin. You know, you probably got to get it onto some sort of like hardware device, at least a little bit, for your emergency preparation, because these guys are they're not doing this. Okay, let's see who's here. All right. Okay, so I hear most analysts believe we are going to see crypto die out for a few months, another dump, and it's going to make the pump closer to September. Okay. Yeah, Vitaly says, great time to visit Japan. I would agree with that. I would love to go, by the way. God, I would love to go. Okay. All right. So in equities, they have this thing called sell in May and go away, which basically means take the profits from the first half of the year, sell, and come back at the end of June or in June for the summer rally. Equities have all these seasonal things like the Santa rally at the end of the year, the January effect at the start of the year. You know, they have sell in May and go away, and then they have the summer rally. Now, I'm not really big. I wasn't big this year on sell in May and go away. Normally, that's kind of my tagline. I get everybody on YouTube fired up. Didn't do it this year. Have to face the fact that there's a currency crisis in fiat. That could be the case, right? That basically we're just going to have to sit here and wait. But sit here and wait. And if you have a geopolitical event or you have a massive currency crisis in early May, now, in my mind, I don't want to go away, right? Like I'm just like, at this point, I'm like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, ETH, Solana, like give me money. Give me money. Zcash at its low. You don't like Zcash, find another privacy solution. At this point, the government's coming for you. They're going to give you a hard time about crypto one way or the other. You might as well figure out how to get ready. There's going to be a Zcash party at Consensus. I'm going, and I'm just going to basically turn on my phone, and then I'm just going to like talk to people. No fancy editing, nothing. I want as much information about all of these like privacy payment solutions, because it's not even about hiding anything anymore. It's like, how do you even hold on to money that they can't just take from you? Like, I mean, you know, if you look at what goes on in China with like social credit scores, like I can't even look at that stuff. You realize in China, like if you buy too much alcohol, your social credit score goes down. I mean, it's unbelievable. That stuff's coming here now. Crypto, crypto is now at the mercy of dollar yen. I basically think that they could sell crypto. Bitcoin is actually holding up fairly well. It's these highly speculative altcoins that can't survive a higher dollar. Okay. All right. Are you always telling us what we want to hear? No, I'm super enthusiastic about crypto, clearly. Okay. But, when it comes to stuff like dollar yen, when it comes to like the reasoning why this market is down, I'm not going to tell you that there's no reason why the market's down. I'm explaining it as clearly as I can, right? There's no question about it that the Treasury and the Chinese are going to need to print money to solve problems that are currently happening. Now, what are my thoughts on the Hong Kong ETF launch? Okay, so that's a great question. So isn't it funny how the Chinese are about to print money at the same time they're launching ETFs for crypto in Hong Kong, which, by the way, is a major financial center. If you don't believe me, you should Google what the skyline of Hong Kong looks like. And frankly, that doesn't even do it justice. Like, it's so big, you have to travel in like tunnels between buildings. It's just so big. And it's like Shanghai, but it's like condensed. It's like 3 New York cities packed into Central Park. It's huge, huge. Chinese are going to print money, and there's going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs waiting to soak up that liquidity. Crazy. Okay. And everybody is selling, right? Everybody is selling, right? So we have Juan is here. We have Vadia, Adam. Hello. Okay. So let's go to PowerPoint. I don't have a lot. Going to PowerPoint. Okay, we're at PowerPoint. Okay, so this is about the power of bottoming signals into mark and whether or not they work or they don't. So this is a 90-minute chart of Solana. Solana hasn't really traded well since it hit 150. It's not horrendous, but really Solana can't sustain a bounce. That's what's really annoying. You get these green candles and you're like, okay, let's buy cat coins. So you have a 13 bottom. That should be a bottom. They rallied it for like 2 hours and now it's back down again. You might see Solana at 138. I would really love it if this thing like completely went down on Friday, because crypto can go up on weekends, right? Like Legacy has all its drama, and then when Legacy closes, crypto can go up. So what I'm kind of hoping is that this is like one final puke today, and then Solana and crypto can turn around and actually go up, because there's no way the central banks are going to let all this happen. I mean, if they do, all that means is when they have to come in, they're going to have to be bigger. Okay, so Bitcoin, again, 13 bottom, not encouraging, right? You got this huge doji wick up to 65K, and then it just comes back down again. So that could mean they have to hit Bitcoin for the rest of today. That could be. But if they do, there's a legitimate shot of not only a 13 signal, but a 9 signal. Now, if you're new and you just got here and you don't understand what these numbers are on a chart, okay, it's a quantitative system that measures where you are in a trend, right? So when you see a 13 or a 9, you say this trend could end, this trend could pause, and if it doesn't, then that tells you something as well. That is the elevator pitch for DeMark. Okay, now again, here's dollar yen. We focused on this earlier. 157.45 is important, and then you start looking at 164, and I've even heard a guy talking about 170 if it gets out of control, right? So the stronger the dollar, the more yen it buys. So right now, $1 buys 157 yen. If $1 buys 170 something yen, then you have a currency crisis, and you have the Fed stepping in. And in case you got here late, altcoins usually do not do well when you have a rising dollar. All right, now back to some live TA. It's basically, like, whoa. Everything is kind of breaking down. All right, but I do want to discuss. I do want to discuss. What am I doing? I do want to discuss. I want to discuss Bitcoin, and I want to discuss Bitcoin Cash, and I want to do it live. So literally, I'm just going to say, all right, I want to look at it, and we're going to look at it. Like unscripted. Okay. So this is the Bitcoin Cash daily chart. Support is at, this looks like, I don't know, this looks like 465 maybe. 465. So Bitcoin Cash was in this huge range. It broke out. Now, the reason I care about this is because, you know, when they slowed down the Bitcoin network after the halving, that should have been a very big clue. A very big clue. Now, Bitcoin Cash had already run up a lot because of its halving and general speculation. But if you zoom in on this, the 38% retracement of the entire up move is right here at 481. So literally, as I'm talking to you, Bitcoin Cash is sitting right at this important level. Now, it is very easy to make fun of Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. It really is. There's all kinds of blockchain reasons why it's no good, etc. It's not as good as Bitcoin. Yeah, but they don't jam the network with runes and ordinals. Okay, it's fast. It's money. It's in PayPal, right? And the day that people wake up, this is the thing. People, normies, understand that there's a problem with money because of inflation. But if there's actually a currency crisis, like where people are like, yeah, there's a problem with the yen, or there's a problem, or Fed has to whatever, or China has to whatever. These headlines are coming. And in my opinion, this is kind of like a concluding point as I just show you this chart. The concluding point is that, you know, if you have to start rotating from altcoins that are not working out, right? If you have to just like take losses, I had to do it. I don't want to park the money in stable coins. Okay. So that's just like, I want to have a core long in Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Bitcoin, especially, right? Because you could wake up one day and these things could become money. TA does work on low caps, but TA is an entirely different beast unto itself when using low caps, right? I mean, obviously it has to have, you know, it can't just be brand new, but sometimes you can work with a 1 minute chart. I have messed around with it. Okay. So I want to do one more coin before I go. And the question is STX overvalued? Okay. Well, I don't know how you describe anything. It's tough to figure out what is overvalued. Sometimes you look at meme coins and you're like, it's worth $500 million. Maybe it's worth too much. I don't know. Sometimes with meme coins, that's what I do. But if you're looking at a layer 2 and you're looking at what's underneath Bitcoin, this is STX and this is a giant stop fishing exercise. And I don't know if we're about to have another one, but whatever doesn't break down, or whatever even does break down, by the time Legacy closes today, you have to be careful about the reversal. You really do. Because if there's a geopolitical event next week that has to do with currencies, a lot of people think maybe the geopolitical event is going to be war or something blowing up or graduation being canceled at some American university. What happens if it's the yen? Right? What happens if everybody gets all bearish and sells crypto, and then all of a sudden you need crypto as money? Okay. Okay. So a final epilogue note. Okay. So the media is now picking up on something we discussed yesterday called stagflation. So stagflation normally doesn't get talked about much in economics books. Basically, it's when inflation goes up, and it's when inflation and unemployment go up at the same time. You have inflation and you have a slowing economy, which frankly we've had for a long time. The only reason you don't notice it is because everybody's been able to get credit cards and 2 jobs in order to survive. Okay. The minute that stops working, especially in the middle of an election year, it's going to be all over the newspaper. It's going to enhance people's understanding of a currency crisis or a currency problem. That's not getting traded today, but the more the media has to go stagflation, 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 the more of this we hear, and then you see the yen go, then the normie world reacts, which is why you have to be ready. And if you have to move, positions around, then you have to move positions around, because frankly, I was not counting on dollar yen going to 160, but it does explain why this market has traded so bad for 2 weeks. Like it does. Like it just, every time it goes up, it just goes back down again, to the point where people are packing it in till September. I know that they're selling May and go away. I get that, but would you be sane if you got out of all your crypto and then the whole reason for owning crypto showed up all at once overnight, particularly on a Sunday when like Asia opens and the US market's technically closed? Not me. No way. Okay. That's the market update for today. I will see you on Monday.